because the honey coming off the hive it doesn't come off the hive at 10 UMF, 15 UMF, 20 UMF like they want to sell it. You might get 13, 17, 18, 12, 15, 20, 22. So you have to batch it together to get your ideal strength. For example, I'm working on a batch at the moment that's about 15 tonne, and that's being aimed to be a 15 UMF, but there will be some 18 in there, some 12, some 10, some 22, and you just adjust the kilos of each till you get the result you want. And there's other markers that are tested in the honey to make sure that it all passes the monofloral standard of Manuka honey as well once it's finished.
This podcast is brought to you by GroundShift. If you're anything like me, you've probably realised that doing things the way they've always been done doesn't always lead to better outcomes on the farm. And that's where GroundShift comes in. GroundShift is all about helping farmers rethink the way that they approach their soils, the inputs into their system, and improving their overall farm system performance. We focus on building resilience, improving efficiency, and ultimately creating more profitable farm systems. It's not always about throwing more into your system. Sometimes it's about understanding what's driving those results beneath the surface. So if you're serious about improving your farm's profitability and resilience, and utilising biology to drive your farm system performance, I highly recommend checking out groundshift.ag, and you can follow them online at groundshift.ag on Instagram. Welcome back to another episode of From the Soil Up podcast. Today's special guest is Liam Gavin from Gavin's Honey in Northland, New Zealand. I've been following Liam for a number of years on LinkedIn, and it's not a usual place you'd see a beekeeper, particularly one in the Manuka honey industry. So I've followed along with quite interest and was fortunate enough to meet Liam at a Keep the Change event run by Luke Keameys to, discuss what he was doing in the Manuka industry. And I thought, hey, I'd love to have you on the potty because I want to learn more about the industry and what the issues they're facing and, the big opportunity that is Manuka honey. So without further ado, let's get into it. Liam, how are you today?
Yeah, good, mate. We've had some squally showers mucking up our day a bit, but I mean, that's, as any farming, that's farming, isn't it? So in and out of the truck, and eventually we just said, bugger this, let's call it a day. and packed it in early, but going good.
Yeah. So Liam, what's an uncomfortable truth about the Manuka honey industry that people don't talk about?
Probably the difficulty of it. When it was going good, they hyped it up for it to be a lot better off than it was. But it's pretty bloody difficult. It's really volatile in terms of seasons. We get big swings in production. Essentially, we get about 4 weeks a year per region for 4 to 6 weeks per region for its flowering source. So if you get the wrong weather, it's bad luck. Wait till next year. Wait 12 months, and then on top of that, you've got to add in the fact that you're dealing with livestock. So not only do you get no income, but you've got to keep your livestock alive with cash flow that you don't have. So that would probably be the biggest thing I could think of. Don't get me wrong, it's an awesome industry. Yeah, I wouldn't be doing anything else, but it's definitely not as easy from on the inside when you're looking from the outside. So yeah.
So you just referred to your bees as livestock. Is that how they're referred to within the industry at all?
Well, I guess they die, so you got livestock and dead stock. So that's how I don't know. They are an insect, but they take a lot of bloody keeping alive. And most hobbyists will say to me, "Oh, my beehive died. I never realised it would be so hard to keep it alive." I'm like, tell me about it. Try having thousands.
I bet. So obviously the Manuka honey gets, at times gets pretty hyped up, as you mentioned before. Has the industry started to mature, or is it still relatively finding its feet in New Zealand?
It is hyped up, but I honestly feel for a good reason. Like its properties on healing is crazy. I've always said if someone uses it in their household for when people are sick or wounds, not very often they won't have it in their cupboard after that time to use in those circumstances. So it's hyped up, but for a good reason. I think what happened was people just jumped on board. They saw the whole flashiness of it. They borrowed lots of money. They didn't pay off their debts. They just kept spending it on stuff when it was going good. And then when it collapsed, obviously it collapsed fast. So Yeah, but there was people that were smart through it and rode that out and paid off their debts, and obviously they're the ones still left now. We're starting to see it's probably been the last 5-6 years been pretty tough, just with a really big oversupply of honey. But we're starting to see the shift at a really fast pace that no one really expected in the other direction. So yeah, hopefully there's not a whole heap of people get all excited and think they're going to jump back in and wreck the cycle again. But yeah, I don't think the banks will burn tens of millions of dollars on them again like they did last time. Not in such a recent space of time. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds similar to some other growing industries as well. Very similar boom and bust cycles. Everyone trying to jump in on the good thing that's happening. So for those who don't know or aren't familiar with yourself, Liam, can you introduce yourself and give a bit of a background?
Yeah, sweet. Name's Liam Gavin. I am fourth generation commercial beekeeper for our family. Our family business started in 1912 commercially. Yeah, my grandfather really ramped up the size of the business when he started doing it. He left school at 13 and was a beekeeper his whole life. He was one of those live to work kind of guys. And Dad left school Granddad was actually the president of the National Beekeepers Association when varroa hit New Zealand, so he was heavily involved with the industry his whole life. Dad left school at 16. He's been a beekeeper his whole life. Crazy as he's never lived off the property that the business is based on here. 63 he nearly is. He said, I spent a couple of years going to boarding school, but he never actually lived off the property properly. And then, I left school. I worked obviously on the bees growing up, in and out of school, like holidays, things like that. And then I did a heavy diesel trade through Norwoods on New Holland tractors, New Holland and Kubota. And then I always wanted to come back to the bees. So as soon as I'd sort of finished that, I did a little bit of time, but then come back to the bees and been here since.
Nice. So what made you want to come back and decide to work with them long term?
I don't know. I obviously always enjoyed going out to the bees with Dad. We used to jump in the truck and go for a drive with him, during the week. Might be shifting hives at night and we'd jump in the truck and go with him. I don't know, I just always enjoyed it. I found them really fascinating, obviously. Like, it's pretty amazing when you get into the depths of how they can, if you keep them fed with food and no varroa nowadays, they essentially can keep themselves going. With the whole harmony of the hives themselves, they'll replace their own queen bee if they need to. Sometimes that fails, but a lot of the time they'll replace their own queen bee. Yeah, they just tick along, they get their own food, they survive for all good. And just getting to get outdoors, you're driving around to different places, you're not going to the same spot every time. I'm not one that I think could work in an office all day. In fact, I definitely couldn't work in an office all day. I'm a typical Kiwi male. Most of us can't. Even the ones that are in offices probably would agree. But yeah, no, I just guess I grew up with it and I had that feeling of always wanting to do it. Nothing really like clicked with me and went, I want to be a beekeeper. I just always wanted to. And Dad suggested to me to go and do a trade because there was always time. He said there's plenty of time, so no rush. But I didn't. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as beekeeping.
That's awesome. So what's it feel like taking over, a business that's been around since 1912? What's that feel like for you?
Yeah. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
But, I was a little bit nervous at the start. We're still part owners of my parents, obviously. But Dad said to me early on, he said, look, how many of your friends do you know that get into business and have failed? Can you name anyone that's ever started a business and failed? And I said, no. He said, well, so what do you got to be worried about? So there was always the guidance there from him. As I said, the experience was huge. There's certain things I've had to self-teach though. We were like, when it was really cranking, the Manuka industry, we were selling to one company, didn't have really anyone else to sell to at all. And then one day they rang up and said, look, we're not taking honey for the next year, at least. And that was, he said to me, I've been waiting for that phone call for a while, but I was just hoping it never happened. Now I guess you got to get to work and find some other people to buy the honey. So I quite like networking. I enjoy talking to people, getting on the phone, meeting new people and building those relationships. So yeah, in a short period of time, I've flipped it around to probably having way too many connections, not enough honey, but not a bad scenario. The company that we've always worked with, they've still been great. They've taken as much as they could when they could. We've supplied them for over 25 years. So, yeah, they still worked with us as much as they could, but obviously they're restricted to if they didn't need the honey because it was over, like they had a lot of stock themselves and couldn't expect them to buy it just because we needed them to. So, yeah, we worked our way through the tough times, and it's coming right now. So, but there's things like that I've had to self-teach a lot. But it's a good way to learn. Like Dad did say to me when it got tough, he said, "Oh well, if it was easy like it's been, you wouldn't have learnt anything anyway. So now you get to learn." So a tough time will teach you way more than when it's easy. So, and he was right. I don't think I would have learnt those skills and been pushed to, get on LinkedIn, get out there, market yourself, build that awareness of who you are and what you do. If I could just pick up the phone and say, hey, send a main freight truck to the shed, I've got 40 drums. I'm sort of happy that that's been pushed me to grow like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd say I'd like to tap into why you decided to go to LinkedIn, because I would say it's not a natural place for a beekeeper to hang out and be posting on, but that's how I originally started following you. It's probably been over a year, and it's been very interesting from my point of view. What was the reason why, and do you find value on that?
I think you can guess who suggested to get on LinkedIn. You mentioned his name at the beginning. It was just from listening to the Keep the Change podcast. I've said it to Luke many times. I said, man, you've changed, your content's changed very much how I look at business, think about life. I've grown a lot from the content off there. Not so much, not necessarily the financial literacy stuff. I've always been quite lucky to be able to lean on my old man for that side of stuff. So it was more around the mindset work, not playing the victim. And when our supplier rang up and said, "Oh, we're not taking honey," I could have just played this sucks, or can't believe they're doing that. And I heard plenty of people talking about them like that. And I was like, come on, man, you could win or you could do something about it. So, I just decided, why not? I noticed there wasn't a lot of people from our industry posting on there. And I thought, well, I'm not really a shy person. You get that imposter syndrome at the start when you start posting, but you soon get over it. And essentially there's not a lot of people posting. So I thought, why not? It's not a hard race to win when there's only a couple of people running. So, and I've gained some great relationships from posting on there, people reaching out from overseas, building some good relationships for exports, things like that we hadn't done in the past, So by getting on there and doing it, we're growing the business in other directions, and it's quite exciting. So
it's also growing yourself as well. And for me, it was probably my mentality on getting on LinkedIn and posting on social media was largely driven by the same thing, that no one else was doing it, so the bar wasn't high. So once you get past that imposter syndrome, you're like, well, actually, just by even posting, I'm winning. And then you get more comfortable with it. So it's been certainly interesting watching how consistent that you can actually post on there and
have something to say.
That's
hard,
you're never
man.
Short of a word.
It's hard though, eh? I was probably COVID. I started our Instagram page, and I was posting and posting and posting, and you get a little bit of following, but and you put up a informational video, and it was bugger all views. You post a video of a tank of honey stirring 50,000. I'm like, what? What am I putting my energy into the wrong thing? Started posting on LinkedIn and I started getting results back. So I was like, okay, I'll still post on social media for the, because it's good to have a brand for other people when you're meeting them from overseas. Say, hey, look, this is our brand. Check it out on social media. But you're not getting those people reaching out to you for those relationships via a social media page. I'd never had it happen. Usually anyone that's reached out has been a scam. Whereas LinkedIn, I started to see results and meet some pretty good connections pretty quick. I've had some pretty quick. I had his ex CEO, marketing CEO from McLaren F1 send me a message the other day and say, hey, he's a little bit linked to a friend of a friend, but like an auntie's best mate. But he still saw my stuff and was like, I'd noticed he'd been liking it. And then he messaged me and he said, hey, I got some things to run past you. And like, you're not going to get that opportunity if you don't put that post up and that they see that you're, passionate and consistent with it. So yeah, it's rewarded me enough now to know I actually, like, you probably noticed I've started doubling down even more.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
noticed.
I needed to like really, after I got a few good leads, I was like, okay, now it's time to really crank it. Because if it can return like that off small amounts of posting, then if you're posting daily every second day, then yeah. But you do run it. It's what do I do? Do you go back to the start?
Yeah.
But that's like you said though. It's all developmental stuff. You learn as you go. You find out what works. You find out what people really engage with, and you go back to that. That's like now on social media. I know if I want a video to pop off, I'll just put honey being scooped out of a frame or like a tank stirring. It'll get in the tens of thousands of views. But like, I'm not just going to put that up every day because it just gets boring, and I get bored of it. So, yeah.
So, for those that aren't familiar with Manuka honey, we've got some listeners from kind of all around the world. What's the difference between Manuka honey and, say, your regular, pasture or clover honey?
Okay, so Manuka's got over 2,000 properties that make it up as a whole honey, whereas clover or your typical pasture honey has about 90. So it's made up of so many more different components. Like, I don't know if many people knew, but honey's got ash component to it. It's got ash in it. So you can actually see the flecks of ash in fresh honey coming out of the comb at times. Like, it's not burnt ash from fires. It's like, I don't even know if other honeys actually have it, but I know Manuka honey, one of the components is that. So that's one of the things that the UMF group work on, is marketing the fact that the Manuka that they have in Australia is a different makeup to the Manuka that we have in New Zealand. It's a different DNA strain. So Manuka it's got the MGO, which is methyl glycoxyl, is the chemical that they measure it with. The people will ask me what UMF it is or what MGO it is. It's very confusing for the consumer. It's terribly confusing for the consumer. Even people reaching out from overseas wanting to stock the product don't understand it. Essentially, UMF is a license to put on the jar. It was created when my dad and about 5 or 6 others worked really hard for years and years. They knew something was in the Manuka honey, and they were just busting their ass to try and get it recognised for what it was. And then when it finally took off, he talks about the story all the time. I mean, there was zero money in being a beekeeper, like nothing. And he remembers turning on the TV and it being headline news that they'd found this thing in Manuka honey, and it was just like, wow, we've finally done it. But what they did was they created the UMF group and the license to protect the consumer, to stop just any old honey having Manuka on the label and being sold to the consumer at an inflated price. So it was a reading versus they measure the non-peroxide activity. So Manuka's got non-peroxide activity, and they measure that. So a non-peroxide activity of 10 will be a UMF 10. So they just converted across. In the later years, there was a lab somewhere, I don't think it was in New Zealand, but they discovered the MGO component of the Manuka honey. So essentially now it's measured in MGO because it's like down into decimal points. It goes really accurate. And then there's a conversion chart into UMF, but you have to own a license to put UMF on your label. It's about $50,000 just to buy the license. So because they quality check everything, so when you pack a run of jars, you have to send all the lab results to them, and they will check over them and then say, yes, this can have the stamp of approval to put UMF on the sticker. And it just keeps the consumer protected as well as the brand. So I think it's a great brand, but it's just a little confusing to the consumer. So a lot of brands will put both on. They'll put the UMF and the MGO just to deconfuse people. But I mean, for example, 40 MGO honey has got about as much Manuka as probably clover does. There's nothing in it, but a 20 UMF is got 850 MGO. But as a consumer, But you're probably getting confused right now.
Yeah, I am. I was going to say, which one should we focus on if we're buying?
Yeah. Oh, the price.
Yeah.
If you want a higher strength honey, it's pretty much buy on price.
Yeah.
But the MGO scale is a lot more. You'll go from 40 to 1200 MGO, whereas the scale for UMF is 5, 10, 15, 20 usually. There might be an 18 in there, but there's a lot less of it. Yeah, if you want really certified, proven, you would buy UMF. It may cost you a little bit more, but around the world, particularly if you are wanting to buy off a shelf, I would promote buying UMF just because, yeah. It's not to say that the brands that are just got MGO aren't, like I'm working with people now that we will be packaging with just MGO on the label. I mean, I shouldn't say that UMF's the only trusted one because there's a lot of people out there that are doing the right thing. There's not a lot of brands that are doing dodgy stuff with the honey. Just specifically Manuka. Like our honey is probably the most tested honey in the world in terms of non-adulterated honeys. I think we probably spend about $18,000 a year at labs just to test our honey. Like it's crazy. So you could imagine what the people packing into jars and exporting are spending on testing. Like it's crazy. I mean, some of them have their own labs just because of the cost of what it is to get tested. Yeah, but a higher MGO or a higher UMF is your stronger honeys. But typically the price will tell you what a stronger honey is on the shelf.
Yep, yeah. So it's pretty interlined. It's like you can pretty guarantee if the price is higher, it's probably better quality honey.
Yeah. There's too much consumer knowledge now to get away with putting a 40 MGO beside a 20 UMF and getting away with it.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere would pick it up. Yeah.
And so you do the testing and then do the people who jar it as well. So if they're buying in bulk, they would double test on that just to check the strength is what you're saying it is?
Yeah. It depends on the relationship. The company we sell to will test the whole batch as one. So there might be 2,000 kilos in a batch. We'll test one drum. From that's all mixed together. And then they will, once the drums arrive there, they'll pull a sample from every drum and test every drum and do a full run on everything. Other companies will just buy it off your testing. It varies, but when they go to package it, they might not put that whole 2 ton as one batch into a tank and pack it into jars. They might take one from me, one from someone down Taranaki, one from someone in the Wairarapa, put them all together and make the strength that they want to make. Yeah. One might be a 10 UMF, one might be a 15, and one might be a 17, and they want to make a 13 or a 14. They put one of each together and make a blend.
And those blends, do they typically say it on the front, or are the consumer not really too worried? They're just worried about that scale?
Nah, because the honey coming off the hive it doesn't come off the hive at 10 UMF, 15 UMF, 20 UMF like they want to sell it. You might get 13, 17, 18, 12, 15, 20, 22. So you have to batch it together to get your ideal strength. For example, I'm working on a batch at the moment that's about 15 tonne, and that's being aimed to be a 15 UMF, but there will be some 18 in there, some 12, some 10, some 22, and you just adjust the kilos of each till you get the result you want. And there's other markers that are tested in the honey to make sure that it all passes the monofloral standard of Manuka honey as well once it's finished. Yeah.
So what impacts, I guess, the strengths of that honey? What are like some of the things that go into it?
Seasonal variance, regional variance. So certain regions produce higher strength honey than others because a couple of things. Some places the plants produce high strength honey, but also it's so early flowering, like right up north. There's nothing else producing flowers at that same time that produces nectar. So that can give a high strength honey. Like this year in particular, we had a really bad year, probably the worst we've seen for quality from other honeys being mixed in. Like they'll fly out of the 4,000 acre Manuka block to gather something else that's easier floral source. They don't care what it is. As long as it's the easiest floral source, then they'll go for it. Yeah. So, I mean, every year is different. That's why we have to just change up what we're doing at the time. So we might pack some honey that, yeah, mix some of the honey that's lower strength with some stuff that's too high in strength for what the customer wants. Yeah. And sometimes we need to buy honey off other people to make the requirement that we want to get. Yeah.
Is that one of the hardest things is around, like, because you're only really harvesting at one time a year?
Yeah.
You can't really control the bees if they want to go to a different floral source?
No. So you try and put them as, like, we've got tracks that run inside the Manuka. We've some people fly in with helicopters, but we've got bulldoze tracks. So we drive them in as deep into the middle of the Manuka as you can to get them away from the floral sources outside. So they'll just gather from the easiest yielding floral source at the time, because they're gathering honey for winter when they don't get honey, but they don't need the amount of honey that they get. For example, some hives this year would have done 60, 65, 70 kilos of honey. They need about 20 to get them through winter. So we usually try and keep enough honey on the beehive and in the shed to have roughly 20 kilos per hive to keep them fed through the year, so that we're not feeding sugar syrup to them. But yeah, to get the purest honey, ideally you're as far away from other floral sources as possible. But some years they get there's just honey that flows heavier than, like, nectar sources that flow heavier than what the Manuka is. This year, I wasn't super impressed with the amount of flour on the Manuka, so I'm not surprised. I have a suspicion it's flax honey that they've mixed in with it. The flax flowered really late and quite heavy, and apparently, like, when the flax is flowering, you can shake the head of it and nectar will fall out. So that's usually meaning there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll do that, but every year is different. Most of the time, we get a pretty consistent average of strength. Yeah, you might get the odd site that's not as good, but overall it'll average out pretty normal. This year, about half of it is probably a quarter of the value of what it should be. But same thing again, you've just got to ride those ups and downs, and on the years that we had, like last year was a really good year for quality. We'll drag some of the extra benefits from last year when we sell it through to this year to balance it out. Yeah.
And does the volume vary much between year to year?
Oh,
in terms of total honey?
Yeah. I'll run back through the last few seasons of volume for Manuka. This year we did 26 tonne. Last year was 36 tonne. The year before was about 15 tonne. And the year before that was 1.8 tonne.
Okay.
And then,
that's split in half, yeah.
And then, like, the year before, the 1.8 might have been, we did about 30. And then we went back to the year before, that was 9. And then that was 40. And then it was 5. So, like, it's just up and down. So you've got to be very disciplined. You essentially want enough either cash in the bank or honey in drums to be able to cover a year of zero income. Takes a lot of discipline to do that. Ideally, you would have enough to cover 2 years, or some form of asset you could sell down reasonably quick if you needed to. We usually are holding it in drums, so it's not too bad. Yeah, obviously you don't want to sit the cash in the bank, but you do want to keep some there just in the bank. I know it's not a great place to keep it, but you never know what's going to happen. Like, for example, at the moment, sales are looking promising, but with the war going on, like, what you don't know, nothing's ever guaranteed. So you always want enough cash there to run and keep your livestock alive, like we were talking about before.
Yeah, I guess that leans back on why you're so good at your numbers, is because you have to be for those seasons. So in terms of your markets, are they mainly export markets for everything that you sell, or do you sell a little bit locally too? We sell a little bit of local market, like just within the Whangarei region for retailers, and then we've just got, like, really loyal, long-standing customers. Unfortunately, I think we'll lose that with this generation, like the generation that they are. Once they go, I don't know if there's the next generation coming through buying honey quite like they do. I mean, most of our sales that get couriered across the country go in a 6 kilo container. So, and some of them are getting 2 at a time, or 3 a year. Like, they'll go through like 18 kilos in a year. And about probably
it's going up because I've gained a lot of retailers by doing that same thing, like just not having that like imposter syndrome stuff of why would they not want to stock our product. I just walk into a shop and say, hey, do you want to stock this? Take it home and try it. Let me know if you like it, and we'll put it on the shelf and you pay us once you've sold it. So we're now moving a bit more, but we might do maybe 2.5 ton a year in jars. But I think we sold nearly 50 ton in drums last year. So in the scale of things, it's not huge, but in the process of getting some export markets of our own going, well, in partnership with people, but essentially all of our honey that we sell goes to export, other than our small local market stuff. Yeah.
And what are the markets that you're selling into there? Where does Manuka honey seem to do the best?
It's going really, volume-wise, it's cranking in the US at the moment. I think they went from 100 million in exports to 150 million within 1 year. Costco's got a lot to thank for that. It's a low margin product country though. It's all volume, like low margin. Costco's pretty, yeah, Costco's Costco. But the UAE is a pretty high value market that'll be getting affected at the moment. I mean, those high value customers are still there. It'll just be getting it to them. The EU and UK, it goes everywhere really. China was the strongest market for a long time, but since COVID, they just haven't recovered. There's talks of them recovering, like their economy starting to recover a bit. So yeah, that's a good thing because they've got quite high value clientele. They're more the higher margin product. And then the UK is your running like middle of the range type strengths usually. Yeah. But it goes pretty much everywhere. Australia takes a lot too, surprisingly. India, it's a new market, hopefully, with the free trade being signed. There was a 65% tariff on it, I think, for honey. So yeah, it's pretty much like doesn't go there at the moment. But over the next few years, I think there's quite an opportunity there for it to be a market that the industry grows into. I think we did 470 million in exports last year into the reporting season's June. So I wouldn't be surprised with the volumes and inquiry that I'm getting, that other people are getting if we hit. And just a shift on the shelf price having to go up a little bit with supply as it is, if we hit 500 million for this year. Yeah, awesome. which would be quite cool. Yeah.
Are you seeing that growth potentially might be mirroring how seems to be growth in kind of that health and wellness natural products industry globally?
Yeah, I mean I push a lot of that narrative on LinkedIn as well, as you've seen. Antibiotics are not working like they used to, obviously. Yeah. I know Dad talked about when they first were pushing Manuka honey and trying to get it recognised, that a lot of it was around the stomach ulcers, but he said field trials were tens of millions of dollars. So it was just never a doable thing. But I think the industry is now getting enough recognition that if the right people wanted to work on it, tens of millions of dollars sounds like a lot, but for the right investor, they look at it and go, that's a no-brainer if it does have good, legs of chance. So yeah, people have always said to me, it won't take off. The pharmaceuticals will shut it down. And I'm like, well, all you got to do is get seen by the right eyes. So keep pushing that narrative. And you never know, is that because no one's pushing it to the world, with enough eyes looking at it, because they've got the mentality of, it's too hard, you won't do it. So that's my way of looking. I know there's definitely companies working on medical dressings, and it is used around the place. I've been a strong believer, if you got the hospitals using it properly at a high level, you'd struggle to buy it in a jar because it would all get soaked up. Like the wound care component, it would just be healing wounds so much that you wouldn't be able to buy it in the jar because it'll be soaked up. So, you probably would only need the likes of India to say, right, we're going to distribute this through our hospitals, and you wouldn't be able to get any of it because they'd take the whole lot. It's a huge country, and that's. Yeah, Dad said that was one of the challenges in the start with Manuka. They would get these potential customers and they'd say, we want a 20-foot container. And they'd say, we can do that per year. And they said, no, per month. And there wasn't enough people producing it then. Now that's doable. But back then they were like, what? Like we've got one,
Yeah.
ready to go. So yeah, but no, I genuinely think that it's a amazing product. That is because natural products, the bugs can't evolve against it. Like, are you familiar with that? How when you go to the doctor, they give you a different antibiotic each time because they've probably built resistance against it from last time, so they need to change it. Whereas just organic products don't get that, doesn't happen. So it's the same as our treatments for varroa mites. The synthetically built chemicals are getting less and less and less effective, and they're about 4 times the price to the organic treatments. So whereas the organics around the world have still not shown resistance to varroa resistance. So it's the same with like bugs and bacteria. They can't evolve against natural organic antibodies. So I've seen some crazy photos of diabetic ulcers. A guy was meant to have his foot cut off because he had a diabetic ulcer, and they put Manuka honey on it for 6 weeks, and it was like fully healed. Because the antibiotics weren't stopping the infection, so they were going to amputate his foot up to like his knee, and they put Manuka honey on it. And I look at that and I go, is that not enough proof? Like,
Yeah.
like why is like this was probably nearly 10 years ago I saw this, and I'm going, why is there still nothing really taken off? I know Comvita had a joint venture with Band-Aid. Like there's been some big companies collaborate together, but it's just never really kicked off. And I don't know why, but I'm sure one day it'll come to light. But there will be the pushback from pharmaceuticals, 100%. They don't want, I mean, I've heard things like some of the plaster companies have had massive budget to poo-hoo and shut down Manuka honey because do they actually want you to put a plaster on that fixes your cut, or do they want you to put 4 plasters on?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it makes sense. They don't want you to fix the cut. They just want you to cover the cut. It's if you stop needing as many plasters, what happens to them? They lose a lot of turnover. So you've got that element of it in the background as well. So it'll be the same thing. The gauze dressing company won't want wounds healed in half the time because that's half their turnover gone. But that's not to say you can't do it. You know, it's not to say the right people won't look past it morally and go, this is a good product. Let's save some people and use this amazing product. So time will tell. You'll still see me pushing content about it and how good it is. The hard bit is that there's no actual medical, like clinical trials. So it's all just, you can't actually make medical claims without clinical trials. So I'm probably not meant to be saying what I'm saying, but I don't know. I'll wait till someone shuts me down because I've seen it myself.
I've had experience with it myself. I had a burn on my face and I put some Manuka cream on it, and it healed so fast it wasn't even funny.
Yeah,
which was great because it was right on my face and I had to go to work. So I've had personal experience with it, and I think it's some of that does happen in like the agricultural industry. Like you see a lot of these Band-Aid fixes for disease and fungus But if you actually approached it from the root cause and looked at it from a biological, natural point of view, you'd solve that issue. But that doesn't create recurring customers. So it's a bit of a shame. But like you said, it's just if you get in front of the right person and they promote it, like it can change overnight the world's perception of something, and it's pretty hard to draw back from there.
Yeah, and I do think people are sick of jamming antibiotics in themselves.
Yeah,
like you don't have to be someone that wants to live out in the bush and be a hippie nowadays, like they would class it, to say like, oh no, I just want to have some like multivitamins and like actually get healthier by natural things. Like everyone's doing that, and you're not looked at like why are you doing that? It used to be a bit like, oh, you're right. But now it's destigmatized. It's just normal to be saying, oh yeah, I'm having Manuka honey to boost my immunity base in my body. People are like, oh cool, like what strength do you use, or that sort of thing. They're not saying like, oh whatever man, you're crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what else are you doing? Like, what other tips have you got for me? Because people are generally interested in trying to improve their health now from a natural point of view, like you say, and I'm definitely well in that area.
I think as a generation, people are drinking less to start with. So I think we will see health healthier generations coming through. People are a lot bigger into their fitness. You just look at the growth of gyms everywhere. People are wanting to be healthier, so they're prepared to spend money on themselves to be healthier. So yes, Manuka is not cheap, but if you eating it daily, like a 300 MGO, a teaspoon a day, just to boost your immunity levels, and it just helps low level bacterias in your gut, stuff like that. So you just don't get sick as much, chuck a bit of exercise in there, those sorts of things. I know it's not easy for everyone else to do this, but when I get sick with a cold coming on, I just get like a 500 gram jar of like 800 MGO and just eat the whole thing in a day. And it's like, it's a lot of sugar. And people say, that's so much sugar though, it's bad for you. I'm like, no, but I don't get sick to the point where I just stop. So like, it's one day. I'm not eating it every day. I wouldn't recommend to eat 500 gram of honey every day. But that's very hard for other people to justify spending. If you have to go and buy that off the shelf, man, it's probably $500 with honey. But we don't get paid that, nor do we pay that for it. So I'm like, if I can keep me going through the day at work and get me there the next day and make sure I can still be a parent when I get home, then yeah. We have a little stash of it just for when people are sick. Yeah.
Oh, it's bloody handy to have that stash on hand. So I've heard that potentially our bee numbers or our pollinators are definitely on the decline in total numbers. Is that something that you're experiencing or seeing when you're out there?
We had 1 million hives in New Zealand at the peak. And to put it into perspective, America had 3 million in its peak. The whole of America. We had 1 million. For our tiny little bit of landmass, we had 1 million hives. We quite quickly declined down to just under 500,000, but that's going back up again. So I would say there's losses each year, right? Your hive losses fluctuate, and depending on how good the operator is, they don't lose that many. If they're good, the people that are losing, this is in New Zealand anyway. This is how I look at it. If they're losing 50% of their hives each year, it's because they're not doing something right. Like if they've just got good systems to make them again. But if some farmer said to you, 50% of my cows die, but don't worry, I've got a good replacement regime, you would look at them and be like, are you okay? Like, what? You could fix that way easier than what you're doing. So, we might lose 8 to 10% each year, which is like that's an okay amount of loss. In America, there's some crazy stuff happening. Some big businesses lost 90% of their hives last year through winter. And I don't know how you recover from that. But I also look at how America keep beehives, and they put thousands of beehives in a dirt paddock with not a single flower in sight and pour sugar syrup in them and give them a false pollen supplement and say, why are you dying? I'm like, well, because they live off flowers, man, not dirt. And they just run these big, I don't know. They do have, it is more challenging to keep them alive because their varroa has more resistance to the treatments than ours do. But they run the numbers game over the quality game. And the same thing happens here. The guys that run the big numbers game and just run on numbers over quality, they lose lots too. So, but a lot of the guys I know that are good operators that have like a zero tolerance for varroa mite type thing, they don't lose much at all, I'm not going to lie though, we've lost probably 35% of our hives before 1 year. We just got caught out and we thought we were doing better than we were, and then just it happens like within a couple of weeks. You just all of a sudden they've all got varroa mite to a level where you can't keep them alive, and we lost about 350 hives. So you don't lose the hiveware. You can remake them. You put the box back on a strong hive in the spring and split it in half again, and you've got two. But it still costs a lot to do that. It's far more costly to do that than it is to keep them alive and healthy. So, but as you get bigger scale, gets harder to get the experienced staff members to make sure everything's ticking along all right. So
So we've talked a bit about varroa mite. It used to be talked about everywhere. What is kind of the status of that in New Zealand at the moment? Is it still kind of spreading
about
everywhere?
what? Sorry, it just went about
varroa.
Oh, yeah, I mean, varroa's everywhere. Yeah, it's any hive now. I get people telling me there's a swarm in one of their trees and that it's been there forever, so it'll be resistant to varroa mite. And I say, no, it's just got honey in the frames and it dies of varroa mite. And then a swarm in the spring goes to look for a new home and there's an established beehive in the tree and they like combs and they go, oh, we'll just set up here. So, but it's everywhere. It's the biggest challenge of a beekeeper. If there was no, I keep telling Dad, I said, you had it easy, man. You didn't hit varroa. It turned up in 2000. So it has been like half of his beekeeping career. But yeah, it's got like super strength in the last probably like 7 years. So yeah, I gave him a bit of shit and said, oh man, you had it easy. Like if you took varroa away, it'd be a very pleasant job if there was no varroa. Like the stress level would cut down to about 25%. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like yeah, because you're always in your mind, you're like, every single time you go out, you're like, vrah. Because if you don't keep on top of it, you lose 30% of your hives. You just bang it. If you get complacent, that'll get you. So, but yeah, and it's essentially it's the same strains of varroa across the whole country. So they're at about the same level of resistance everywhere because they travel. Someone takes hives from Northland down to Taranaki for a crop. Those bees then fly out onto flowers and the varroa can jump between bees on the flowers and then they'll go back to the hive from Taranaki and then a varroa mite from up here is down there. It just moves around and they crossbreed with each other and then the level of resistance is everywhere. So yeah, you can't keep them inside a fence, unfortunately. So diseases fly through the sky, and yeah, you can't really get away with having a lax take on it. Yeah,
yeah. Because I guess from the outside looking in, beekeeping looks like quite the career. You're outside a lot in some beautiful bush. What is probably the thing that people underestimate the most about being a beekeeper?
It's heavy work, man. Like it's physical. It's hot. The mental drain on you. Every single hive you go into, you have to evaluate from the start to like what's happening here, what do I need to do, and every single one is different, so you can't just idle your way through the day very often. Yeah, it's an awesome job though. It is an awesome job. It's cool, like you said, cool being out in the environment, traveling around. You do get to see some pretty outstanding things. It's very rewarding when you work all year to get these beehives to a nice big healthy strength. You move them into a Manuka block doing silly hours, 15-hour days. Like you might go 15-hour day, 15-hour day, 15-hour day, and then have one of them off. And then you put them there, and then they start getting honey, and you get to just be like, cool. You drive around. Oh, this one's full. Put another box on it. And the next thing you know, they've done 40 kilos of honey each, and you go, that's pretty cool. Because you built something, you've kept something running. It's like farming, you're producing something, you're making something from scratch. And I mean, you'll be aware on this that like, I feel like producers don't get valued enough for how much value they bring to the country. Like it's terrible how little praise producers get for what they bring in from overseas to keep the economy running. Like it's, do you know the percentage of GDP that comes in from overseas exports and dollars?
Not off the top of my head, but I hear it quoted all the time.
It's terrible. It's 30%. Yeah. So 70% of our economy just goes around in circles. So like our 30% has to like prop up a lot of the economy. Yeah. But there's nothing gets said about it. So it does make you feel pretty good when you make something from scratch. For us, for example, put it in a drum, know that that's going to hit a jar and go into a shelf overseas and bring overseas dollars back to New Zealand. Like that's a cool feeling as a patriot.
Yeah.
But it's a rewarding thing to. Yeah. I mean, even when you get down to making the queens from, like, it all starts with the queen bee. So making a queen from scratch to then make sure its genetics are in the beehive so that it's a healthy hive that's got nice calm nature that we can go out and work bees without suits on, and then it produces a heap of honey and you go, oh, I built that from scratch. It's cool.
I bet. So if we look forward, what do you see as the future for the Manuka honey industry here?
I think it'll keep growing. The like the volumes are growing, and they have been. The volumes might slow down in growth, and maybe we'll move to, but the value might grow. So the focus might go into better margin areas. I'm already hearing it from exporters saying, "Oh, we've ditched that customer because they aren't prepared to move on the shelf, and we've only got enough to supply so many. So the ones that are prepared to work with us will get the product." So maybe we will see a volume decline, but the value incline. I think we will see some more growth into other products that use Manuka honey. It's getting put into all sorts of products now, which is quite cool. Have you seen the Y Manuka drink? Have you
No,
seen
I
that?
haven't.
That's quite cool. He's hitting the States quite a lot. I can't remember his name, but yeah, that's quite a cool product. They're putting Manuka into a drink. Friend up north, they're putting Manuka into a drink as well. I think it's a sparkling water with Manuka. Yeah, it's quite refreshing. But yeah, I mean, Manuka's a great product. Honey is. I'm going to get this the wrong way around. Someone's going to say I got it the wrong way around. When you consume sugar, your body has to turn it from glucose to fructose or sucrose. One of the ways around. Anyway, your body has to convert it to a version of sugar that you can then take into your bloodstream. The bees have already done that. So when you consume honey, it goes straight into your bloodstream. So it's a faster energy consumption than if you were to have a sugary drink. Your body's got to then convert that into, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I'm going to get one of those three things, whichever way around it is. It has to convert it into to a consumable sugar, whereas the bees have already done that. So it hits the bloodstream really quick. I know they're using it in like running gels and stuff like that as an energy boost. When the World War II was on, not World War III, that's happening now. World War II was on. Granddad supplied the army with some tubes of honey, and they came to him and said, "Can you supply us with so many tubes?" It was a crazy amount. It was a lot. And he said, "Yeah, cool. Well, I think you should use Manuka though, because it's got a better food value." And they said, "Oh, yeah." And they, whatever, we'll take it away to the lab, just do it in clover. And then they came back and they stipulated from then on it had to be Manuka honey because it had all the extra properties and the food value in it. So, but yeah, even they were using it for a quick hit energy source in the war. So
yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like, because you don't have to use that energy to convert it, it would be great for like an endurance product.
Yeah.
Get that quick hit of sugar that's straight into the body.
Yeah.
So I wrap up all my podcasts with one kind of quick fire question, which is, what's one belief or principle that keeps you grounded no matter what season you're in?
A good one I've been taught over the years, because I can be a stressor. Dad will always come over there and say, "Hey, what are you worried about? We always get through. Like, when have we never got through it all? When has it not ever been all right?" So yeah, I try and remind myself, like in a challenging time, like it's all good. Like you'll get through it. It's only, it feels like forever, but it's a short time, and then quite often after that really stressful time is quite a rewarding time. So because you've been through a challenging one, but yeah, definitely would be just to not focus on the uncontrollables, focus on the controllables, and that you always get through it. Even when I think of things outside of work, like raising kids, it's tough, but then all of a sudden they'll just switch and you always get through it. You know, they're in a different stage, and yeah, so that would be my one, man. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's a very good one. So for all the listeners who want to connect with you and follow along with what you're doing with Gavin's Honey, what's the best place to follow on?
We've got Instagram and Facebook. They're both Gavin's. If you just search Gavin's Honey on there, you'll find it. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just Liam Gavin on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Cool. So, I'll link those below on the potty, so it's straight for anyone to come have a look.
Nah, cool. Appreciate it, man. Awesome.
No worries, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It was a bit of a self-indulgent one because I wanted to learn more about the industry, and it's been great to have a good chat tonight.
Yeah, no, cheers. Thanks for inviting me on. I mean, I can talk for hours on this stuff, but I mean, I'm sure you'd probably listen, but yeah, some people might turn off after an hour on the podcast and go, "Oh, that's enough honey chat." So,
well, it means you can always do another one down the track.
Yeah, that's right, man. Nah, cheers, Thanks for inviting me on and giving me the opportunity to share some of the story.
No worries, mate.
Awesome. Cheers,